Ah!
Terve Junti.
Nice to see
Listen,
you
I
as
haven't
well.
used I haven't used this before, so I had to go back into the settings to change, add the microphone and add the camera, and here we are.
People were asking, do you speak any Finnish? And, well, there is an obvious answer for you.
It only gets worse after that, I promise you.
I know. How many bad words do you know in Finnish?
Um, a few. I've probably forgotten some already, but the normal. Am I allowed to say some?
Yeah, of course you are.
Just the normal perkele and the one that begins with a V,
Yeah.
and all the a few others. So, you know, um, and then other useless things that when I was with Yuha listening to Tommy speak and what have you, they would say something, and I'd say to Yuha, "What does this mean?" Just words that just came up right,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
just suited my ear. So there you go, there you go. So anyway, are we live now?
We are live already and people are laughing to your start. Terve
Oh.
Juntti.
That was for you, not for all your Finnish viewers, mind.
I think there's also quite many English viewers actually.
All
So
right,
so
okay.
it's gonna be good.
Well, you need to explain to our English viewers what terve junti actually means.
Well, maybe you can do it, so I can check that you know what it actually means because
Okay.
I
Well,
I know many co-drivers who think they know what when they speak Finnish they think they know what it means, but they have actually got no idea.
no idea. Well, terve is just hello,
Yeah.
and junti is kind of an uncivilized man that lives in the forest. Is that basically a polite way of putting it or not?
That's a polite way of putting it, yes.
But basically it means what?
Exactly what you said. It's there's many situations where you can say you fucking yunti or he's a yunti or whatever. But yeah, there's many meaning. As you know, there's many meanings for a word in Finnish that depends on how you say it is
Yes, yeah.
how it comes out to the guys. How are you, mate?
But
You look great. I haven't seen you
not too bad.
for nearly 2 years now, but you look great.
No, I know, I know. No, things are not too bad. I, I mean, it's all strange times for us all,
Yeah.
and uh, from a business perspective, it's been different. We've struggled a little bit in the UK because rallying has been very low key. We've had good racing in the UK, so from a business perspective, it's kept things going nicely. But it's we're coming to the end of it, I hope,
Yeah.
and we've done really well in the UK with vaccinations and everything. And I've had one. I've got another one in about 7 weeks or so, and then that should cover me until till I need a third one. So, but yeah, no complaints. But just desperate to get things back to normal, really, and have a normal life again.
Well, to the viewers, if they are Finnish or English speaking or whatever language they speak, what's your current main business? So now you have your time for a small advisement.
Yeah. Well, basically, I just distribute Stilo helmets, intercom systems, racing, rallying, karting, everything in the UK,
Hmm.
and then add to that, competitor safety gear like fireproof racewear and neck braces and that sort of thing, and then added a few other brands to it as well, some co-driver stuff, a little bit of preparation stuff, but mainly it's the Stilo is the big bulk of my business.
Do you do any like because you are one of the legendary co-drivers, and for me, one of the best co-drivers ever. You've been with amazing drivers. We'll speak about that later. But do you do any work with current or young upcoming co-drivers?
Yeah, well, we have a with Motorsport UK, we have an academy,
Hmm.
and I think you have similar things with the Finnish Federation, for instance,
Yeah.
where we, there's a team of guys that look after drivers of all different standards, but there is an elite group of drivers that they have, and then lesser drivers that come up into the upper classes later on. Then with the co-drivers, it doesn't work in quite the same way, because we always found that if we invited people to be a part of it,
Hmm.
they didn't always want to engage, because some of them, I'm presuming this, some of them felt that they were better than the academy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we thought, right, okay, well, if that's the case, then why are we wasting our time trying to put time and effort into co-drivers? We want to deal with co-drivers that want to be a part of the academy. So we now invite people to come and apply when applications open, and then based on their experience, what they're doing, then we choose them, and then take them on into, give them the information that'll take them where they want to go.
How is it in UK? Like you said, there are some co-drivers who think they are better than they actually are. Actually, in my opinion, also in Finland we have a slight problem with really, really professional and high end, if you can say so, high end qualify co-drivers who are ready for the top level. But how is it in UK, and what does it need uh, to be a good co-driver?
Do you know, I think, and I'm not being unkind to those guys that didn't want to be a part, or didn't enter into the spirit of the academy. You know, at the end of the day, as a young co-driver, I always listened to everybody.
Hmm.
I was never afraid to ask a question, even if it was a stupid question. But if it was important to me, I wanted to know how they would react in a situation, or how would you do this, or how would you do that. And do you know what? You never ever stop learning. And I think reading pace notes is a special art.
Hmm.
Every driver likes to do it differently. The pace notes are slightly different, and that you take for granted. But there's so many other angles of co-driving, so many other things that makes you professional, to keeps you in control of a situation, and knowing exactly how many minutes and seconds you've got to travel to the next time control, and how much time will you have spare should you need to work, and how you handle that. And you know, for me, it's the fine details that make the co-driver great ones.
And I think it's when you said there is not a stupid question that, or you cannot. It's wrong if you don't listen to everyone and then you decide yourself which you want to take into your own. Is it driving or co-driving? And I think it's the same for drivers, which I try to teach the young drivers I work with, that listen to everyone. Never be afraid to ask a question. Is it
Mm.
world champion or is it some young kid? Listen to everyone and decide what are the key points that you want to take into your own work.
Absolutely. And I think that probably the way that I co-drove was the way that I chose to do it.
Hmm.
The basic jobs, the time control aspects, the reading, the pace note, yeah, that's one thing. But then there's so many other angles of how you do the job. And I took a little bit of, you know, what Tiziano Siviero. I always took a lot of note of what Tiziano Siviero did, who co-drove for Mickey Biasion,
Yeah.
because he pushed the boundaries. He was thinking in a different way, and I quite liked that, his approach to co-driving. And you know, I just took what I wanted from him, and then I took a bit of something from somebody else, and something from that person, and then I just put it all into my own system. And at the end of the day, it helps you keep control of so many aspects of the job, but it almost becomes automated and controlled, and knowing the timing and exactly how long it'll take you to travel 14.6 kilometers of this road section. And you know, and I knew I had to have 8 minutes spare to do what we needed to do, if we needed to do anything. And all of this for me became a confidence booster as well. And you know, a feeling of really being in control. And I think a lot of the time when you look at a professional driver, yes, once he's chosen his tires, Everything else is just a natural thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to think about it. He can just do it. And I think that when you become more experienced, once you've got your systems in place, once it's a fail-proof system, you can too just relax and just go through the motions without having to think hard about it. And I think that's what makes true professionals that much better,
Yeah.
because they don't have to try hard to do it.
Exactly. Quite funny you said if you would have 8 minutes or whatever to spare. We were watching the video from, was it 93 in Argentina with Colin?
97, was
No,
it?
sorry, 97 with Subaru.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you now tell me, because I have my own opinion about what happened, but
Okay.
did you really make the TCA straight with the rock, or did it mysteriously happen to be lying in the bushes of Argentina?
No, it was actually in the ground, and I think the other side of it came out in Helsinki, I think. But this thing was solid. Nothing was going to move it. And we just, we were traveling up the stage from Mina Clavero up to El Condor, which is a steep climb up to about 1,600 meters high, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was the old main road, and it's quite deceptive and quite tricky. And we came around this left-hander, just went way too wide, way too fast, and there was this rounded stone in the ground, and it was big bedrock, and just slammed into it so hard that it kicked the car up in the air, and it hit it really badly. And while we could continue, we could obviously, Colin could tell that the thing was damaged. We could hear the tire rubbing on the back, and by the time we got to the stop line, did the time cards, went out by the roadside, and of course the wheel was such an angle,
Yeah.
we couldn't take the wheel off the hub because it wouldn't go past the bodywork.
Yeah.
So, right, now we were in a predicament. So we decided, right, the only thing we can do is let's drive on this, and then with the tire rubbing on the back, then the tire will explode. Which there was a guy called Paul Freca from Belgian television was there. So he got his guy and said, come, let's follow these guys. And they were filming us from behind with the camera.
Yeah.
And then, boosh, the tire blew out, which you saw. And then, of course, now we're committed. We've got to repair the car because we can't put this new tire back on the car.
Yeah.
So, and then that was a case of then take the wheel off, take the jacket up, get the arm off it, and then we tried lowering the car onto the arm, thinking the weight of the car would make it straight. No chance whatsoever. And then there were some rocks by the side of us, so right, we just tried putting it on the ground and dropping rocks on it, and that didn't work. So I said to Colin, listen, you hold it. This thing keeps moving. You hold it. And there was this big flat rock, which I could hold. And then we just whack. Wow, that started to work. So we just whacked away until we got it somewhere near straight, and then bolted it back on the car and put the wheel on. And we got into the time control 2 seconds before we went OTL. So we'd lost a lot of time, but we were still in the rally. So then El Condor stage, some people may have seen it. When you drop down the other side,
Yeah.
there's these narrow chain link bridges and quite tricky. Anyway, we came out of the stage and we were fastest. So we thought, my God. And Colin said, well, listen, we need to change the track because the track is way out on the back. So we stopped on the road section, tweaked the track a little bit, and then we went into a 3-car super special in Cordoba, which was right by the service park.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd never done 3 cars before. And so we started the stage and off we went, all went off the line together, going round and around and around and around and around. Anyway, came to the last page of the pace notes, over the flying finish, and I looked around. Shit, there's nobody here. So then, Christ, have I gone wrong? Have these other cars finished? And I looked to the left. No, they're not in the stop control. I thought, shit, I've made a mistake. But we'd actually thrashed them completely, and we were way quicker than them. We went up to the stop control, and then these guys appeared over the flying finish. But we were fastest again on that stage. And that was the story of the bent arm in Argentina.
Because I'm sure, and I've okay, these are only stories, and I'm sure that, as you know, been long enough in the sport, sometimes miraculously a part that you are have bent or trashed or has broken, it might have been in a bush or behind a rock or behind a house in some place. You know that these things has
Yes.
happened. And I'm
Yeah.
sure somebody told me already years and years ago that, yeah, in Argentina '97, somebody from ProDrive came and hid the TCA on the bushes and you found it and you put it in.
No, no, it was a genuine repair. It was a genuine repair.
Okay, I must believe you. I must trust you. I must believe you.
But you could see we were
Yeah, yeah,
smashing the
yeah,
thing in front of you.
yeah.
But it was one of these remarkable things, and we managed to pick up championship points, even though we lost something like what would be 15 minutes of road penalties. No, 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 no. Close to 2.5 minutes of road penalties we had. So the chances of us winning the rally had gone. But we finished. I can't
Second.
remember where we finished. Top five or top six or something. Second.
Yeah,
My God.
97
Yeah.
second. I think
Yeah.
that's the year that one of the years that you should have won the world championship because you won a lot of events of that year, but you had five retirements, no, six retirements. Uh,
Yeah. And not many of them crashes. I think only two of them were crashes.
which was not unnormal for late Colin.
No, no, no. Well, one of them was unlucky. It was on a icy road in Monte Carlo.
Monty, yeah. And then
Yeah,
you
and then
had uh,
Finland in Juha's stage. What's that stage behind Juha's
Laukama,
farm?
Laukama,
Lau-
Lankama.
Lankama, that's it. So Lankama, we went off shortly after the start. We went into a new area went through a farmyard and then square left and joined the old route.
Yeah,
We went off in this farmyard and smashed the back wheel off again. But all the others were due to a cam belt tensioner issue. And we had three engine failures caused by this cam belt failure. And, he deserved the championship that year. He
hmm
really did.
mm,
And he drove brilliantly on most others. And, we worked really hard on Safari as well, and to win Safari in our first year as well. If there was an event that you'd say was not a Colin McRae event, it was Safari.
yeah.
But we worked on the pace notes and came up with a new pace note system for the rough events, and then all the rough events basically became his strongest.
Yeah. Well, there's normally no. I had no plan for these interviews. I just start to talk, and then it automatically heads to some direction. And okay, now we went to Colin. Uh, obviously, Colin has been or was one of the greatest rally drivers in my opinion, who left us way too early. But how was it actually as a co-driver to be with Colin? Because his style was flamboyant. He was always flat out. If in doubt, go flat out. These legendary words. But how was it to be as a co-driver for Colin, and how did you start to be the co-driver for Colin?
Um, well, obviously, when I joined him, I came from UHA,
Hmm.
and UHA at that time was a four-time world champion. And anybody that's a four-time world champion is, obviously pretty special as well. But Colin at that time, like you say, was nickname was Colin McCrash
Yeah.
in the UK, and there's all these terminology. And I think it was just his flamboyant, stylish driving. And it's a kind of driving style that you don't necessarily see anymore
Mm.
because the whole nature of the sport's changed, the way the cars are set up, everything's made to be so efficient.
Yeah.
And, I think Colin's driving style was completely different. I'm not necessarily always the fastest, but hell, he looked fast even if he was slow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of driving style.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it had got to the point when we were excluded from the World Championship in '95 and there was a battle for the championship between Carlos and Colin in the end came out on top. I think then maybe his mentality had changed a little bit, and through 1996, things were going in a wrong way with him personally, I think,
Yeah.
and with the team. And I think David Richards felt that he needed to have somebody more of a calming influence, somebody who was going to work with him a little bit more and tell him when he's doing things wrong. And you know, basically, Dave Richards contacted me in June of 1996, and we met up in Bristol, and you know, we chatted through a few things, and then over a period of about 6 to 7 weeks, we went back and forth, negotiated a deal, and then it was concluded that, you know, at the end of November, my contract with Toyota was finished, as UR didn't have anything at that time either.
Mm-hmm.
And I just joined him for all the testing. And to be honest, by the time I joined Colin, you know, I think he realized that he'd have to change this way that he was going. And to be honest, there wasn't too much I had to do or too much I had to say, because we made some changes to a few things. We put this new pace note system in place for the rougher events and won Safari. And then all of a sudden, the rougher events became his best. And I think he blossomed as a driver a little bit as well. And I think he just accepted the fact that it can't be the way that it was. And he's just got to behave himself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy. It was easy for me.
But was it for you because he was with Derek Ringer for a long period of his career, and you said uh, he needed a change and he needed a voice to calm him down. But with all the respect to Derek Ringer, I'm not. He has been a great co-driver as well. But were you, as a person, a kind of co-driver that you had the balls basically to tell him to calm down or shut up, listen to me? Because that's what you need to do sometimes as a co-driver. And why I'm asking this is because you know, I'm working really closely with Gus, and we just now changed the co-driver to a more experienced one. And
Yep.
this is just a change that we needed, and what has happened, that's another story. But did it happen with you that you had the balls to be the man, to have the guts to tell him to listen to me or shut up or whatever was needed?
Um, I didn't. It wasn't so much like "shut up, you don't know what you're on about. Listen to me." It was nothing like that. It was just, you know, because with ProDrive behind him, the whole team setup was a great setup. You know, your pre-event meetings, the recce, the talking about tires, the tire shed, all of that was good. It was just a case of in the car, and it was like, whoa, tidy this up a bit. This is getting too ragged. Just make it tighter, keep it clean, you
Hmm.
know, that kind of stuff. Because, you know, Colin's driving style was, you know, through the side windows and, you
Yeah.
know, whoa, just tidy it up a little bit and keep it smooth. And it was just stuff like that, really. There wasn't too much of anything else, to be
Yeah.
honest, because maybe he had a bit of respect for me with the experience that I'd had over the years and where I came from. Perhaps there was a mutual respect there or something. And I think for a young driver, they need to respect their elders to a
Yeah.
point. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, embrace them and take from them exactly what's needed. And for Gus, I hope he's doing the same with Chris. You know, that just embrace that.
Yeah.
Don't fight the co-driver. The co-driver's there to help you, not work against you. And if he's got something to say, listen to it, talk about it, If it's good, we'll implement it
Mm.
and then go again. And perhaps that's the way that Colin thought. But it was a real pleasant experience, to be honest, and especially to win 5 rallies in our first year.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there are many stories, and I hope you can tell the viewers as many stories as you just can remember. Any stories they are like. Uh, I got to know Colin not so well, but still quite well. He was a good friend of my brother Mika, whom I think you know as well.
Yes, I do.
Uh, but still somehow, what I would want to know about Colin and his driving, because we all know how fast he was. Uh,
Yeah.
but he was also Macrash. Were you ever scared?
No, no, I wouldn't say scared at all. I tell you where I noticed the difference. Um, there was always a place in a rally where it gets a little bit narrow, the surface is a little bit slippery, there's maybe a tree at the side of the road on a flat out six right over a crest or over a jump, and Colin was just had a vision and an ability to shut all these elements out and to take that six right over a jump flat
Yeah.
and land right in the corner, missing this tree to the left side by 12, 30 centimeters or so, and just get through the corner flat. And I think he just had that ability that when people would shut off a little bit more and be careful, Colin just had that ability just to push a little bit harder. And that's where I think whenever Colin was fighting with somebody to win a rally and we were in second place and they were in first place, he is the worst person in the world to have in second place, pushing you to win a rally on the last day.
Yeah, was it more of uh, he? Could you say that it was more up to him making also good notes, or you together making good notes, and him really trusting them? So if you would have a real fighting moment with someone, you second, someone else first, and you would have a six right, and depending on if it would rain cows from the sky or whatever the conditions would be like, he would go flat out even if somebody else wouldn't go flat out. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, well, we had a situation in 97 and we didn't have such good first day, but we were fighting at this point with the Peugeots that were in these 306 front wheel drive tarmac racing machines.
Yeah.
And on the first day, Colin was really pissed off because both Panizzi and Delacour were in front of us. And Carlos was in there and a few others. I can't remember exactly, but I know the Peugeots were beating us. And that night in the motorhome, Colin was saying to DR, listen, we have got to stop these cars. He said, we have absolutely no chance whatsoever. What chance have we got of beating a car that's 300 kilos less and the same horsepower and on tarmac? And David said, listen to me, Colin. If you want to win a tarmac rally, you get yourself a Peugeot 306. If you want to win the World Championship, you want a Subaru WRC car. And I said, fair play, David. That is really the right thing to say. I was just thinking this. I thought, well done, David. That's brilliant. And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Colin then changed completely because he thought about it too and thought, David, you're exactly right. You can't win a world championship in a 306. Don't worry about it. Let's get on with the job in hand and let's go and do it. As it was, we went into the second day and things improved a little bit and we came up the rankings. And I think I'm probably going to get pulled up over this. I'm going to get it wrong. I think we were about fourth place. Panizzi was behind us or retired, but Delacour was in front of us. Carlos was right up there. I think he was virtually leading, I think. Anyway, we started the last day, and Corsica's never easy, as you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, bit by bit, we'd overtaken Delacour in this 306, and then we'd overtaken the second place. And I remember we came down into a service area in the next town in a fishing port just to the south of Ajaccio. And we had one long stage left over the top of this hill and down the other side. And as we pulled into the fishing port, there was just some spits of rain started to come down. And I thought, this is playing into Colin's hands now. And you could see the mountain where the stage was in the distance. And I could see there was dark clouds and everything. And Pirelli came up to us. And, our engineers was there. And I think it was Brevio, I think, from thing. He said, yeah, listen, our guys are in the stage. It's starting to rain. It's been getting heavier and heavier over the last 5 minutes or so. And we're thinking it's going to be this, that, and the other. And Carlos was in an Escort Cosworth on Michelin's, and we were in a Subaru on Pirelli's. And Pirelli's historically were arguably always better than Michelin in the wet. So we thought, this is playing now into Colin's hands. And I think, again, I haven't got the figures right. I think we were 16 seconds behind, something like that. Or was it 9 behind?
Who was leading at the time?
No, Carlos in this Escort Cosworth.
You were 18 seconds behind in stage 15.
So stage 16 was the last one, yeah?
No, 18 was the last one.
So what about after 17?
You were 7 seconds behind.
Okay, so we were 7 seconds behind. And I thought, this is playing into Colin's hands. And we started, so we went to service, we chose our tires, we said it's an abrasive surface, middle section really narrow, built up ledge of tarmac, probably just over a car width, quite tricky if you get off the edge of the road, and there's a bit of dirt and gravel on the lower level. And anyway, Colin said, right, we're going to use an intermediate. I don't want a wet, I want an intermediate. And, when we left service, you could see that Carlos was, sweating. He wasn't pleased about the situation. And that was the first time we actually caught and passed Carlos, to win a rally. But we set off in this stage. And when tires are cold, when conditions are tricky, Colin then, his flamboyant driving style really helped him in the situation. It's like getting caught out on a tarmac stage on a set of slicks and it's raining. Colin's driving would become even more flamboyant. He's throwing the car around like it is like an ice racing vehicle on, these French things, sideways, but what he's doing, he's actually spinning the wheels, sliding, generating heat in the tire. And it works for him in that scenario where everybody else becomes a little bit tentative and, be careful in here. And the problem is the situation's getting worse and worse and worse because the tires are getting colder and colder and colder.
Yeah.
But for Colin, he would turn that around on its head and he'd become more aggressive, throwing it in sideways, generating heat in the tire. And we started off, because things were a little bit cold, a bit like this, but then progressively you could see the car attitude was changing. The tires came up to temperature. And then through this middle section across the top of this hill, it was stunning. It was stunning. The driving, the commitment, it was clean, it was smooth. And I think we got to the end of the stage and we'd taken that time. And plus, was it about another 8 or 9 seconds off him, I think?
Yeah.
Was it 16 seconds we took out of him in the stage?
Yeah.
Absolutely thrashed him. And, that was a very satisfying victory for that year.
I'm sure it was. And you absolutely killed the front wheel drive cars. 38 seconds. Panizzi lost you, well, obviously, in those conditions.
No, as soon as they get wet, that's it. It's finished. Yeah. It's finished. They haven't got any traction.
Yeah.
So, but again, that was the nature of Colin a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And the way that he approached these things. was quite special. But as it was, that was just one victory of 5. We won Safari, which for me was probably the most satisfying of all the rallies that year.
Why is that?
Well, the thing is, we've got WRC coming back into the World Championship this year.
Yeah.
But it's not like a Safari.
No.
Nowhere near. Nowhere near. You probably got the total mileage of probably one day of the rally is probably in 1 or 2 sections of a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where we'd have maybe 120-kilometer section, and it starts rough and it gets rougher and then it finishes like hell on earth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, when we did our test, do you want to know the story of?
Of course we want.
Okay. So we went up to a place called Windy Corner, which is up near Karen, on the outskirts, I think the northwestern outskirts of Nairobi. And we're just dropping down into the Great Rift Valley. And there was a section off on the right-hand side where we were using for testing. And it was quite fast initially, with some rough sections, and then it starts to get really narrow, and then it dropped down this escarpment, and the road was completely destroyed. There was all the gravel had gone, there was boulders and rocks everywhere, and you literally have to go up and over, and and it was hellish, and then you'd have a quick section, and then you come around a corner and then into something else. And, when we did the notes, make the notes for this section, it would be caution such and such and such, and double caution such and such. And then there was a triple caution, and then there was another double caution and a caution. And it was just notes with all these cares, caution and triple cautions. So we got back. And I just said to him, right, what's all this care, caution, and triple caution then? He said, well, that's just warning me about the road conditions and stuff. And I said, can I make a suggestion? He said, yeah. And I said, well, listen, if you're going to be any good on this rally, you can forget that system altogether. I said, we've already, and you've been using for many years now, your pace note system. That describes the corners, the speeds, and everything perfectly. I said, we now need to have a set of pace notes that's going to tell you how slow you must go in a given condition. And I said, when you look at Safari, the object of the exercise is to go as fast as you possibly can, but slow enough that you're not going to damage the car.
Yeah.
If you get that right, then it's perfect, but you have to be patient. So, right, how are we going to do that then? And I said, well, one, we need to describe exactly what we're facing. If it's a ditch, if it's a hole, if it's rock, if it's a rough. And then I said, we need to apply a speed to it. So, and I said, we obviously forget about numbers because it gets confusing. We'd use a descriptive system. So it'll be easy, fast, medium, K. Oh no, I don't think we had fast, medium, bad, and slow, and stop.
Yeah, because Juha had K.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
So then he said, right, okay. But I said, then you've got to decide, like for Colin, number 1 is first gear. 6 means it's flat out. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you've got to decide now, and you need to be careful with this, is that this description means it's second gear and you drive it accordingly, or third gear or first gear, and stop is stop, obviously. So, right, okay, so he thought about it, and we drove down, made some more notes, came back, made the notes back the way. We went down and tried them, came back, and he said, right, we're going to change these descriptions around a little bit. And we went up and down all day, testing, doing tires, doing this, that, and the other. And I said, what about the notes? Are you happy? He said, yeah, I'm really happy with that. And off we went, and we went on the recce, and we made our notes. And other than I think we were second after the first day, I think.
Battery
But
low.
being sensible, because you can't be fastest everywhere in safari.
Yeah.
But it's all about looking after the kit. And other than a nightmare alternator scenario, which was a whole different story in itself, how we were so lucky
Charging battery.
to finish the first day
Charging
alone.
battery.
But he was just patient, and he just bided his time. And then, we ended up second, and the team were happy. The car was in great shape, no issues with that at all. And then we started day 2, which started on a section right by where the new safari is going to be based for this year. And it was like 120 or 140 kilometer section, which we called the Road to Hell, because it started off bad.
El Burgon,
Yes,
153 kilometers.
153. I knew it was a long one. And so anyway, it was dark by the time we got to Naivasha, to the service. Fitness trainer was there. Right, guys, big day today. Take plenty of water with you. Hydrate, stay hydrated. Food, and take a snack with you in the car. And everybody was panicking. There was a bit of a slight issue at service, bit of a panic. Anyway, we left there. Just get into the time control on time. He said, how much time we got? I said, we got to go straight in. Right, okay, straight in the time control. Checked in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And it's bad. The road is rough. We turn onto this, after about 15 Ks or so, we turn onto this railway line, old railway line. Well, that was completely destroyed, this railway line. And the other thing I taught Colin, a section of road could be 2 car widths. But in safari, you need to find the smoothest side.
Yeah.
And you're continually changing from one side of the road to the other road to the... So we got onto this railway line, and it was like 200 long 5 right plus into keep left over bad ditch, into keep right over 100 over medium rough, into keep left over 50 over bad rough, into stop ditch, because you just had to drop the nose into this ditch and drive out the other side. And it was like this for 50 kilometers. And it was hellish. And then eventually we came onto just a new piece of regraded road. We joined onto it. And we had something like 15 kilometers flat out on smooth stuff, up to Elementite crossroads. And anyway, we're on this flat stuff. He said, I need to stop. I said, what do you mean you need to stop? He said, I've got to have a pee. He said, I can't hold it anymore. He said, I wanted to have a pee at the start. I said, listen, forget it. I said, there's no way. I said, listen, just undo. Like, we didn't have full overalls.
Yeah.
So we had these like trousers and a t-shirt. I said, just undo your trouser a little bit and just loosen the belts and just relieve the pressure. So anyway, he's there fiddling and driving. Anyway, crossroads, turn left. And then we're going up this bank for about another 20 Ks or something. And water had been running down there, and there was all these ruts across the road, and it was boom, 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 all the way up this hill. So anyway, we get to the top, and it was a T-junction onto a tarmac road for about 4 or 5 kilometers. And I said, 50, turn 3 left plus opens onto tar. So then it was like long flat out corners. It was about 3 or 4 long flat out corners for these 5Ks. So anyway, 4th, 5th, 6th, he said, take the wheel. I said, you what? He said, take the wheel. He said, I can't hold it anymore. He said, I've got to let it go. So, right, organized co-driver, switch the camera off so we can't get excluded. So he's now, I've kind of loosened my belt and I've got the steering wheel with my left hand. So he's now undone his belts and he's maneuvered himself in the car now with his foot jammed on the throttle, and he's trying to open the door to have a pee. Anyway, you try opening a door at like 160 kilometers an hour, 100 mile an hour, it's hellish difficult to do. So no chance. So now all he's doing is peeing on the floor by the pedals. I said, Jesus God. He said, oh, God, he said, I couldn't hold it anymore. So now he's having a bit of a go at steering. So long, flat left. And so now I'm steering long, flat left, 6th gear. And there's the helicopters flying above us, totally oblivious. There's people on push bikes, people walking on the side of the road. There's dogs, goats and donkeys. And there's me driving a car from the passenger seat. So then long flat right, and he's still peeing and still peeing. And I said, Cole, you're going to have to finish, because I said, listen, there's no way am I going to be able to hold this. We're coming onto the gravel in a minute. And in this village where we came off the tarmac, there was massive, great potholes. He said, oh my God, stop, my God, stop. Anyway, eventually, he did manage to stop. He grabs the steering wheel, went bang through these potholes in this village, sorts himself out, starts to put the belts on, and then he starts driving again. Anyway, during that stage, before the tarmac, Tommy had 6 punctures. And he was putting good punctured tyres back on the car because the other tyres were letting go and going down to the rim. And he had complete transmission failure.
Yeah.
Because the diffs gave up, the gearbox gave up. Anyway, we completed the 153 kilometers, and we got to the end, and we were fastest by 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
In that section, and that sealed our victory. Then that we were then in a controlling position, and I said to Colin, I said, listen, I said, you would have let me drive a little bit more often. He said, you know what? He said, you can fuck right off. He said, he said, I'm doing the driving in this car. But he then, his whole, the confidence of driving and not making a mistake.
Yeah.
It was remarkable on those rough rallies. And we won one event with Malcolm. We won 2 with Ford. I can't remember if it was the first one or the last one that we won with Ford. But Malcolm said it was the best victory Colin McRae will ever have, because he drove with such confidence. We were never fastest on one section, but we won the rally by 7.5 minutes or something. Because we never got into trouble. Everything was perfect. No mechanical breakdowns, nothing. And, Cyprus Rally, Acropolis, we won 4 times. Argentina's not easy. We won that. And he used this pace note system for all these rough events, and they became his best ones.
How was Colin as a driver? Obviously, you won in total your career. I think you won 21 rallies, but with Colin, obviously, majority of them. Colin was always known to be, like we all know him, a flat-out driver. But was he also a driver who was really thinking, that that didn't need to be the fastest all the time? Did he have the skill, like let's say Ogier has for me now, or maybe Tanak, that if the rally is not coming to you, he doesn't force it to, he doesn't try to do something that is not natural. He just accepts, okay, this is not my rally. I will take as good points as I can.
All I will say is he was a 1-time world champion.
Yeah.
He had the speed to be a multiple-time world champion. But I don't think he really, if he approached rallies like Juha approached rallies,
yeah,
he would have been more successful than Juha. He would have won more championships. I think it was just his sheer need for speed and the way that he was about, being fastest and what have you. There was probably times where he backed off, but Juha knew that if somebody, I remember there was one rally, I forget which one it was. Anyway, he said, he's driving very well. He said, listen, it's his rally. He said, we finished second on this rally, he said, and we wait and see. And he knew that he'd have to drive uncomfortably over the limit and take big risks to try and catch that person.
Yeah.
Because that person, for whatever reason, felt good on his day. Colin wasn't always like that. He'd always want to try,
to win.
and
Yeah.
there was always maybe the little incident here or a little incident there, and some of them, we had a couple of big accidents. Yeah, we had some couple of really big ones, but generally there weren't as many as when he was in the Group A days in the Subaru. I think he changed his approach somewhat, but he wasn't a real tactician then, let's say.
What kind of a person was Colin like as a driver? Because if you might say that no, this is not true. Uh, as a driver, seeing a driver and seeing your onboards, uh, I'm sure he was not that easy of a person all the times. And obviously you had your arguments because you stopped together at end of 2002, I think. But
Yeah,
then
that's right.
you continued. You had some fights. Is this my dream, or did it really happen in some rally that you closed your notebook and you
No,
stopped?
I never did that.
I think then it must be my dream, or you did something that you stopped reading or something in some rally, some gravel rally. Was it Portugal? Because I think you had, I think could have this been your last year or something, and I think you had some disagreements or whatever you had. I don't know. It's not my business. But
Yeah, no, I would never know.
some I think you stopped reading notes for them, and you said you go then or something like this, and it was in an onboard.
I can't think. Listen, from a co-driving standpoint, and as a professional co-driver,
Yeah,
I would never do that.
yeah,
I mean, that is like, that's your signing off from your
your job.
contract. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
I don't think I would have done that. Um, but Colin was a very passionate person. Championships was important to him, but there was always incidents that stopped us from getting there, and we came close quite a few times, and just lost at the final hurdle, really, and lost out by a point. But yeah, there was times where we did have some arguments, and I think it's like a good marriage. I mean, even a good marriage, you always have arguments with your wife, but somehow it's kind of like forgotten and you go back. But I think from a young driver's point of view, I think you have to accept that there's good and bad, and I don't think anything is 100% perfect. And some of the best relationships in the world rally or world of rallying have never been perfect, but they've been incredibly successful because they're willing just to, when they're in the car, when they're doing their job, that's great, and then let everything else and let all those side emotions just disappear and don't even let them bother you. Because I think there were situations with Colin, it was a little bit like that. And towards the end of 2002, especially after we had that crash and lost the world championship in Rally GB in 2001,
one.
I think that was quite a hard moment for Colin then.
Were you good friends outside of the car as well?
I always, yeah, I mean, we could speak to each other whenever, but I was always the kind of person that I wouldn't want to be living in his pocket all the time necessarily, and always on the phone. And oh, what you doing today then? Where you going? What you doing? No, none of that. If I needed to speak to him about professional business, then I would pick up the phone and speak to him about professional business. But I always felt that we spend enough time together during rallies, during testing, and the way that the championship was structured then, that I didn't feel that being on the phone all the time when we were at home was necessary. And, we kind of lived a kind of a separate life away from that.
Yeah, well, at that time, I think you were traveling together close to 250 days or whatever, quite close to
Yeah.
that. So maybe it was also good to have some time apart and not only being because as I think the co-driver and driver when they do the full championship, it's like a marriage.
Yes, it is.
And also, like you said, in a good relationship or good marriage, you also need some own time to be able to have your own thoughts come to life a bit. Was
And I
yeah.
remember that, but the World Championship is whittled down to nothing in comparison to the way
Yeah.
it was, where we could test everywhere. And you'd be hopscotching. Do you know what hopscotching means? Means you're jumping forward and going to the 2 rallies ahead to do a test, and then come back and do this rally, and then you go and do the rally you've tested for. But before you do that, you do a test for the rally before that. But you were traveling across the world to do this. And you'd travel to New Zealand, you'd get to New Zealand, you'd have 2 days just to get your head into place. And then you do a 2 or 3 day test, and then you'd come back to Europe again. And then maybe have a few days off to just before you go and do a 2.5 week recce of Acropolis Rally, for instance. And, in 1994, I think that was the worst year ever. I had 36 days at home.
Yeah.
Which is
36.
36, yeah.
How do you how did you keep your head together at that time? If you were going to New Zealand, back to Europe, testing all the time, how did you manage psychology to keep your head, like, psychology side up and running?
To be honest, I loved it.
Yeah.
I breathed rallying. It was everything to me. I loved it. I had the support of my wife, and she enjoyed the sport as well, and the thrill of it. So it was my life, and I loved it. And of course, with somebody like you are, for instance, you were at the top of the sport, and you flew everywhere, at least business class, and intercontinental, everything was first class. So you could imagine it was a pleasure to jump on a flight to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because you had a bed to sleep on in the plane, and you had a glass of, Cristal with fillet steak cooked medium rare with, you had what you wanted, and it was wonderful. I mean, that was a fantastic part of being a professional co-driver, as well as the rallying, which was just the icing on the cake.
Could you say that 2001 Rally GB crash was your career's biggest disappointment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
We just had a look on the crash just I think 10 minutes before you joined us, and that was a big one. That was a big one.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it was very early in the rally as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very early. And did you play that on board of the first gravel stage that we did on that rally?
I think that's the most watched onboard of all time.
Yeah, St. Gwynno it's called.
Yeah.
And I think that stage was Colin really at his best, and confident in the car and all the rest of it. But we knew that we were up against it at that time, because Peugeot was a quick car.
Yeah.
They had good power and everything. So, Colin absolutely drove his heart out in that stage. And, we get to the end, and I think Marcus Granone was 2 seconds behind, and Didier was another 1 or 2 seconds behind him.
Yeah.
But then we were in a battle for that championship with Richard Burns.
Yeah.
And, we'd taken something like 8 seconds off him, I think.
Yeah.
And then we had a short road section and went into another stage, and then I think Marcus beat us by a few seconds. But we were still, yeah.
We're still leading by 0.2.
Yeah. But, Richard was still behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's all that matters. And we get out of that stage, and we're now right up on the top of Resolven, on the top of the Regos. And basically immediately opposite where we had the crash. So we turned left on the main road down to Treorchy, and we're going down the road section, and he's going, shit. He said, we've got to get some time just in case we have a puncture. And I said, well, listen, I said, you're not going to get 30 seconds in a stage. I said, maybe get 30 seconds at the end of the rally. But I said, listen, it doesn't matter about Marcus Granone. He's not going to win the World Championship on this rally. I said, we just need to keep Richard behind us. Yes, I know, but if we have a puncture. I said, well, listen, we're not in a battle with Marcus. If that's the case, let him get on with it. Let him win the rally. So we went down to Treorch, he turned back right, back into the forest, and now we're climbing up to the stage start. And we started that stage and we climbed up a little bit higher to literally where we came out, just before we came out.
Yeah.
And some low cloud had come over the mountaintop and it was like fog. Anyway, eventually we drove out of this fog and, Colin knew that Richard was very, very good in the fog and his pace note system was really helped in conditions when he couldn't see, where Colin's pace note system was very much about a speed element, and it was all about speed and what he could see and driving to what he could see and what the notes would tell him. But when he couldn't see, then it had an adverse effect. So, you felt him get quicker and quicker and quicker when we came out of the fog. And we just came to this section of, short, quick corners, and they came out a bit like, it came out pretty quick. And Colin said there was this right-hand corner. He went in, set the car in the corner. He said, I thought I could change my line, he said, but I thought, no, it'll be okay. I don't need to change the line. And what he didn't see behind the grass was this bank, and then the corkscrew accident, big end over end, massive accident. And I knew there was no way was that car going to move, because although we were on the wheels and the bonnet was up, the steam was pouring out the front of the thing. And that was it, championship over. And to be honest, the look on my face probably said a 1,000 words, really. And I just went we flew down to Cardiff. I packed my bags and went home, and I just left it there, really. And it was a very disappointing end to what was panning out to be a very difficult and tough year battling against the Peugeots. But we had some fantastic middle part of the season, I think, did we win 3 rallies on the trot?
Yeah, you won Argentina, Cyprus, and Acropolis.
Yeah, we won 3 of them all in a trot, and I remember that turned our whole season around. And it was disappointing, and that actually was Colin's last opportunity to win the World Championship.
Why was that?
Well, he was never in a position to. In 2002, we weren't at the races. We won some rallies, but we didn't have an opportunity to win the World Championship. And then when he went to Citroën, that was a difficult time for him as well, because that car was engineered completely differently to the Ford.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was an easy time for him at Citroën. And he just was never, after that point, in a position to win the World Championship again.
Was it at that time still, if we compare to these days, that the cars were more built to a certain number one driver? So could you say that when he left from Ford to Citroën, the car was just not made for him, or was it just because I think if you might know the answer, but for me, as his driving style was still like a lot of sideways, I think he always ran the car with a really stiff center diff, and I think the Citroën was a car that was designed totally against his driving style.
All I know, I mean, obviously,
You weren't-
2003 when he got back with Derek again in the Citroën.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great season. I don't think he won any rallies, did he, that year?
No.
And when I did get back to him, we had an opportunity when Sebastian Loeb broke his shoulder, and on a mountain bike accident, they wanted us to do Turkey and Australia, and we went to do a test up in Kielder with them. And it was as much as anything else to do a bit of a gravel test for Rally GB. And, the way that Citroën worked at that time, I think it was more a case of, what I felt anyway, is that the engineers engineered the car. The driver just had to drive it. And we went down this test road and made the notes, came back, flat out back, came back, no sign of any engineers. Mechanic came with his long cable, plugged it in a computer. The guy said, oh, good, there's a place in the front of the truck here for you to have coffee. So we went there and had a coffee. And then anyway, Colin thought, well, where's the engineer then? When are they going to speak to us? Anyway, they eventually came back and said, mechanic said, right, come on, guys. So we went back in the car and Colin said, well, where's the engineer? Anyway, the engineer came out and said, right, we'd just like you to do one more run. And what they're doing, they're engineering with the software, the way that the car drove. But what Colin found was if he wanted to set it into the corner like this, the car was trying to stop it all the time. So, of course, it was very much for driving late on the brakes, early on the throttle, feeding more and more power coming off the brakes slowly but surely, and driving through the corner to get great exit speed. Well, Colin was always fast in, very sideways at the start, but always straight out.
Yeah.
But he was losing time by doing that, and Sebastian Loeb had changed the whole
philosophy
theory
of driving. Yeah.
because he changed the whole way that rallying worked. And I think that anybody to survive in this world, you have to drive it almost like a bit of a front-wheel drive car if you can. Try and keep it as straight as you possibly can. And of course, that was completely against everything the way that he'd driven for probably the previous 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just very difficult for him at that point.
I'm sure there are many stories that we could hear about Colin's career, but we are not here to talk about Colin's career. We are here to talk mainly about your career. And the first results I have from you in EWC are 87. But how has your rallying or co-driving career ever started, and how did you become a co-driver? Did you try to be a driver and just realize that this is not my thing, but I still want to be part of the sport, or how did it all start?
Well, in Wales anyway, and predominantly in Wales, although they were in England as well, we had a sport called road rallying, which is a form of sport that you don't really get anywhere else in Europe to the same degree. And in the early 80s, it was an event that you'd congregate in a, cattle market, car park somewhere, and you'd be given the route in Ordnance Survey map references, and you'd plot your route, and you'd have 2 hours to plot a 200-mile route. And then you'd have all these time controls, passage controls, a dedicated approach, a dedicated depart. And as much as driving as quick as you can, the greater emphasis was on the quality of the navigator and how we navigated and read the map and read the corners and described the severity correctly, getting the right approach to a control and finding the right slots and not overshooting. And, that became, I started with this basically because it was a pure clubman sport.
Mm-hmm.
And, over the years, it got better and better, and Welsh Championship and then the British Championship. And then till a point then that I started doing some stage rallies, because stage rallies was where the World Championship was.
Mm-hmm.
Although at those early days, I didn't have aspirations of being a World Championship co-driver anyway. But then soon as I started doing some co-driving, I could see it was a different world, and, the approach was different. There was, up until, the early 90s, then map reading in the forest was still allowed because there was no pace notes even in the British Championship. So my skills, became, quite useful.
Yeah.
But then eventually recce started and reading pace notes. And to be honest, reading pace notes was very simple after reading a map.
Yeah, surely.
Because all you're doing is reading what's written down in front of you, not looking at a map, knowing where you are on that map, being able to look at a corner, decipher the severity of it, describing it to the driver in advance, telling him the length of the next straight and the next corner. So, all of a sudden, 4 jobs became look at it, read it, bang, easy. No thought process. And
When did notes come part of rallying in UK? Do you remember?
you know what? I think it was. I remember when I joined, when I came up through rallying. Anyway, I mean, I drove with Vauxhall, Opel. No, what are they called? GM Dealer Sport in the
Vauxhall
UK.
Nova.
Yeah, Vauxhall Nova with Dave Metcalf.
Yeah, and
He
Harry
was
Hockley.
Yeah, Harry Hockley was. We was the drive guy that drove their 1300
Okay.
Nova for GM Dealer Sport. But then, he was a great front wheel drive driver. But when I joined Dave Metcalf in '89, this guy was some flyer.
Hmm.
This guy could drive a front wheel drive car like you wouldn't believe. And I mean, he had absolutely stupendous car control. I mean, honestly, the angles he could get this Nova was just unbelievable. And we finished 4th on the Manx International in the middle of a load of Sierra Cosworths, which was just a remarkable result. And that was the first time I ever drove quickly and thought, shit, this is fast, That was the first time I really felt that we were absolutely on the limit.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful drive. But I remember joining Malcolm then, because Malcolm, I think, was driving for GM Dealer Sport in a cadet at that time on the World Championship. And we ended up, he wanted a new co-driver and he asked me to join him in 1990 with Ford. And I remember we did the British Championship in a rear-wheel drive Sierra, and we were still using the map then. When we went to rallies in Ireland, there was a recce then, which we could use pace notes in Ireland on the tarmac, but the forest was still off the map. But when we went, I think Rally GB in 1990,
And
was
Rally
the first
Finland.
time.
You did Rally Finland with Malcolm as well, 1990.
Yes, but then that would have been pace notes, yes.
Yeah.
But I think when we got back to GB, 1990 GB, I think, was the first time GB had a recce.
Ah, okay.
Because it was always historically the only rally in the World Championship that you weren't allowed pace notes on. And so, it became a much easier job anyway. But the whole World Championship and joining Malcolm and going out and doing testing and learning that the maps in Portugal are probably better used as toilet paper because it has no meaning to what you're going to do. And, it was all just a fantastic learning curve. And 1990 was the first time I competed on a World Championship event outside of the UK.
When you joined Malcolm, was that the time that you thought, maybe this could be my profession to be a professional co-driver, or was it still more like a hobby?
No. At that time, when I joined Malcolm, with Dave Metcalf, I think I had a £5,000 fee for co-driving for Dave Metcalf, but I had a job as well. But I actually, with Malcolm, I turned professional. I then gave up my job. I had a wage, I had a company car of Ford Motor Company, and then my whole life then was just spent co-driving. So that was the start of it in 1990.
Was this when you're driving with Malcolm 90 and 91? Was it the works team or was it? It wasn't his own team. It was the works team.
No, it was Borham.
Borham.
It was Ford Borham at that time.
Right.
And it was some years later, just a few years later, when Malcolm started rallying himself, that it became M Sport.
Yeah.
And I think the Ford management felt that it was a far more cost-effective way to be in the World Championship using M Sport than it was using Borham.
Yeah.
Because it was a very expensive way. But it was nice to work under Peter Ashcroft and all the old guys at Ford Borham before it finally came to an end.
Yeah. Then you joined 92. These are those results I see. Mikael Eriksson, with Mikael you did Safari Rally 92.
Yeah.
Was that the only rally you did? No, surely not.
Yeah, well, we did have a contract for 3 actually.
Okay.
We did have a contract for 3, but I mean, I had some negotiations. I had a British manager who was UA's manager actually, and anyway, I had an opportunity came up. Mikael Eriksson, da da da. Yeah, 3 rallies, but you've got to do all the test and development for Safari. So anyway, as it was before San Remo rally, I'd agreed terms and everything else. And I thought, right, I'm not going to tell Malcolm now. I'm going to tell him after the rally that that I'm not going to co-drive for him next year. And anyway, we went through scrutineering, and we get down to this super special stage on rescued land in San Remo. And Armin Schwartz went up to Malcolm and said, "Oh, he said, I see Nick's joining to the Team Europe next year." Shit. I was only thinking of Malcolm. I just didn't want him to think about that. I wanted him to do the rally, and I'll tell him afterwards. Well. You can imagine he was not happy. He was not happy at all. And, we did continue, and I think we had a half reasonable result, I think. Did we finish 5th? I think it was maybe our best result in the Sierra Sapphire, I think.
Yeah, 50. Yeah.
Yeah, that was our best result. So it wasn't a bad result. But of course, by the end of the rally, he kind of calmed down and stuff. But it only shows that you've just got to be upfront and tell the driver there and then when something's been decided, because I got shot in the foot. But Mikael, the job with Mikael was an interesting one, because that was the first time I went to Africa, and it wasn't just a normal kind of event, because it was regarded as the toughest rally in the world at that point, and it was 5,000 kilometers, the route, over 5 days. And 5,000 kilometers over 5 days.
Yeah.
Time to the minute. And some of the road sections were so incredibly tight. You had to drive virtually flat out to get service time. So I had something like, of the sections that were really difficult, I had something like 26 pace notebooks, I think, for Safari that year. And, you had to, the timing elements, you need to know which ones were cleanable and which ones weren't. Because if you had a cleanable section, you didn't want to push that hard and stress the car. But on the ones that were droppable, you had to, and if you were 1 minute and 59 seconds over the time limit, you got penalized 1 minute. So, when you're coming to the end of a section and you look at your watch and you think, go, because we're flipping getting close to the minute.
Yeah.
And you have to try and beat the clock to save you losing another minute. And, it was a hell of a challenge, but we were there for 4 months.
4 months?
4 months we spent in Kenya doing all the test and development, because it was the new Celica ST185. So I think Carlos and Marco Allen, and I think Armin was involved in the championship that year. But to do Safari, I think Mikael had some Safari experience. So we went out in December, and I spent literally almost three and a half weeks, I think, and we did a test with this test car. And then we went home for Christmas, and then early in the new year went back out again. And then we did a recce of the route, which that took us, I think it took us 7 days to get round the route once. Some sections we managed to do twice. And then when we got back, I had a day to tidy the notes up, and then we went to the airport in Nairobi with the engineer. He said, "Boys, come with me." And we went to the airport, and there was the biggest plane I'd ever seen in my life, an Antonov plane, Russian transporter. Anyway, that's just flown in from Frankfurt, and the nose of this thing came up. And in the front of this thing, there was some spares, some crates. There was 3 service vans. There was 2 Land Cruiser chase cars, a brand new rally car, and a helicopter. And that was our stuff then. The 3 more days or something, and then we were doing a thing called a high-speed test, which was reconstructing the whole rally, service time and everything, with a helicopter, flat out, to see what would happen to the car, if it would break. And then after that first loop, then they gave us a week off and we went home. So now, all of a sudden, I don't know where we are. But anyway, we went home and they wanted to do some re-engineering of some stuff. And then we went back out to Kenya again, and then we stayed there for a full 2 months, I think. And then we did another high-speed test, which again reconstructed it for a third time. So that's now 20,000 kilometers of the route, 15,000 kilometers we've done. And then Carlos and Marco Allen turned up, and then we did the recce. So then we went and did 1 loop of the route, which took us 7 days. Anyway, Mikael said, listen, he said, there's no need for me to do another loop of this, he said. We've already done it 4 times. He said, I'm going to go with his girlfriend down to Mombasa. And he went down on the coast and spent a week, by the seaside. So I was left in Nairobi in our hotel, which was not too bad. It wasn't a shabby place. But anyway, Uwe Anderson did not like that approach, and I think Uwe took an offense to that. And as it was, Mikael never drove for the team again.
Ah, okay. So his decision to go for a week holiday with his girlfriend ended his career with Toyota basically as well.
It did, yeah. Yeah, and he didn't do much at all after that, I don't think, did he? I don't think so. But I think we had Argentina and Thousand Lakes lined up as well, I think, as a part of our schedule that year, but we never got the chance again. Well, of course, that meant now that there's this keen, really enthusiastic co-driver left with nothing to do. So anyway, I said to Uwe, what can I do? I want to be out competing. And he said, well, listen, he said, we'd like your help with something. And Jürgen Bertel, their coordinator, was leaving. And he said, listen, I'd like you to go and do a service recce with Jürgen Bertel for Acropolis. So I thought, okay, well, it's better than doing nothing. And, it was very interesting. 15 service vans, 6 tire trucks, 2 helicopters, 2 motorhomes, chase cars, medical vehicles, workshop trucks, stores vehicle, and trying to coordinate this on a tough event like Acropolis. And I thought, well, it's not too bad at all. And I sat with Uwe and we're going down this one section. And I said, looked at my watch and looked up the hill. He said, what's wrong? And I said, service 6 should have come over the top of that hill by now. He became that tuned to where vehicles had to go. And he said, who's in service 6? And I said, oh, it's Paddy something or other from Ireland. Bloody typical, he said, bloody typical. Anyway, 5 seconds later, over the top of this hill, here comes service 6 down the road. And I said, oh, that's okay. He's going to be okay. He's going to get there on time. He said, fair play. He said, that was very good. And I said, thanks, Uwe. I said, but just imagine what job I could do in a rally car for you, I said. So anyway, as it was, I didn't do another rally that year, but I did Argentina service schedule by myself. And the first time I ever went to Argentina was then.
Charging battery.
But then at the end of 1992, and I'm going to lead you into probably something else you want to speak about.
Yes. This is,
I
think, what they're all waiting for.
Oh, I don't know if it's the right thing then. But anyway, I had a conversation with Mike Greasley, and I had a conversation with a driver, and I was really excited, like this was the big thing. Anyway, as it happened, right last minute, the driver decided, no, I'm going to stick with where I am with my co-driver and everything. Then, my manager said, listen, Armin Schwartz, Uwe's spoken to Armin, and Armin wants a co-driver for next year and wondered if you'd sit in with him. And so we started negotiation, and then I had a contract with Mitsubishi.
Mm-hmm.
So gain another new team. So, not too bad. I'm getting through the teams now. That's 3 teams in the first 4 years anyway. And it was a 1-year deal, 7 rallies, that's all. And, that basically was the start of my Armin Schwarz experience, really. And, it wasn't negative at all. It was very positive. I liked Armin a lot and got on with him really well, actually. Another driver with very good car control is Armin.
Yeah.
He's got fantastic car control, and he could really handle a car very impressively. And when the going got tough, but then with 7 rallies, you spent a lot of time at home. There wasn't a lot going on really, and I was lying in bed, 9 o'clock in the morning. My wife had gone to work, and anyway, my home phone number rang, and I picked up the phone. Hello, and it was my manager, Mike Greasley, and Mike said to me, "Listen, Nick, how do you fancy doing Argentina?" I said, "Argentina?" I said, "But hang on, the recce's already started for that, hasn't it?" He said, "Yes, it has." He said, "Listen," he said, "it's not good news." He said, "Really," he said, "Juha wants you to go and do the rally because Juha Pirinen had a brain hemorrhage last night, and he's been rushed to hospital and all the rest of it, and Juha wants you to go and do the rally." And I said, "Well, listen, I've got a contract. What am I going to do?" And he said, "Well, I've already made the phone call." And he said, "Uwe wants you to go and do Argentina and then go straight to New Zealand and do New Zealand off the back of it." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Brilliant, yeah." I said, "But, let me know then if Mitsubishi agree." Anyway, he said, "Well, pack your bags ready." He said, "They're making arrangements at TT." He said, "I'm confident this is going to happen." Anyway, 11 o'clock he rings. He said, "Yeah, job's on, Nick. Perfect." He said, "You've got a flight at 2:30 out of Heathrow." He said, you've got to pick your ticket up from British Airways and ticket desk." So then I rang the wife beforehand and just said, "Gee, you never believe what's just happened." And anyway, I rang her back. I said, "Listen, job's on, darling." I said, "I'm off to Argentina and New Zealand." She said, "How long will you be away for?" I said, "I think it's about 7 weeks." Nowadays, it's like probably that was only 2 weeks,
2
probably.
weeks. Yeah.
So anyway, she said, "Oh, brilliant." And I said, "Listen, I'm coming down to work to see you now." So I went down to see her, and she came down to my car, and you give her a kiss and a cuddle, and I'm buzzing, aren't I? You get me to that airport. And and then the whole Kankkunen thing started from there, and gee, what a whirlwind! In 2 weeks, everything that happened to me in that 2 weeks was like an absolute dream come true.
Yeah.
Get to Heathrow, pick up my ticket. I've got to go to Paris. Then in Paris, you've got to go to this ticket desk and pick up another ticket. And then I get to Paris, get my ticket, and shit, first class. I was flying first class. I couldn't believe it. Business class was one thing. So then I flew overnight to Buenos Aires, and then next morning arrived, jumped on another plane. Somebody picked me up and dropped me off at the airport on the other side of Buenos Aires, flew me then to Cordoba. Somebody from TTE picked me up from there to Villa Calas Pass, and I get to the hotel, and there's Cancanelli sat there with about 14 coffee cups, cigarette ashtray full of cigarellos, and pace notebooks and road books were there. He said, "Right, come on, let's get going." I said, "Jesus Christ." I said, "Give me a map. Let me see where we're going first." So I had a look at it, and he said, "Right." He said, "Listen, we've only got something like 7 days, if that." So we managed to get around every stage twice. Flew up to Tucumán, which was up to the north, where we started the rally. And then super special stage, and we were fastest. So now one stage down, and I'm leading my first World Championship rally. And then from there on, we never lost the lead. And, we drove brilliantly. The whole team experience, which I was used to anyway, was fantastic. The car never missed a beat. And I remember getting to Cordoba, the finish, and gee, it was just unbelievable. The amount of people that were there. You know, it was like a football match. You know, there was so many people in this football stadium, and you know, just a fantastic experience. Fantastic experience. It was wonderful.
How was it to jump in with Juha? Obviously, he was using English notes, so you didn't need to read in Finnish. But how different was it to your previous drivers to jump in with one of the legends at the time already from the sport?
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, it was really nice, and UR was such a out of all the drivers I've been with, he's by far the easiest driver I've been with. You know, because he was the first of the real naturally talented drivers. You know, when I look at so many of the drivers in the World Championship, you can see somebody who's fast but works hard at being fast.
Hmm.
And then you could see somebody like Juha Kankkunen who's fast but makes it look like it's slow.
Yeah.
Difficult for people to maybe understand that, but everything, the car is just in the right position. It doesn't need any adverse sharp movements. The car is just floating from corner to corner, and everything just felt so easy. And his pace notes, like you said, was in English, and it was a descriptive system like we used in road rallying. Easy, fast, medium, K, exactly like my road rallying days. And I just fell into it straight away. And with just a week's recce and managed to do every stage twice, the relationship just kicked off there and then.
Did he still have these Finnish words that he used? Did you use the same, like sumppu and
Kira.
kirra? Did he use them with you as well, or
Yes, yes, yeah,
was
yeah.
it
So
was
Sumpo was easy. Kira, you know, but that was about it, I think. I think everything else was more or less was English, really. You know, so it you know, I think you could. I think as a co-driver, you could probably learn to read pace notes in any language because it's a limited vocabulary.
mm,
And you know, I think that those words were just simple for me, and I knew the meaning of them. I knew what they were. But he felt that just the Finnish language, the words were too long to describe the same things,
yeah.
and English was shorter, sharper, and easier for him to understand. So it just worked for us both.
Well, that year, 93, you did 6 rallies with him or 5, and you won 3 of them.
Yes, yeah.
Not a bad way to start a new
No,
partnership.
the it was well. I mean, winning obviously first of all in Argentina
Argentina.
was massive,
Yeah.
and that was a great way to start. And then we went to New Zealand, but New Zealand in '93 was a lot different to what we did over the previous or the Rally New Zealand's after that, because we went a lot further south. We went down to Rotorua, and beyond Rotorua down to a place called Gisborne. And of course, on the way from Rotorua to Gisborne, we came up against a stage called Motu. Now, Motu was quite a long stage. It was 50 kilometers. And it was like the best way to describe it, it was a gravel road that's like I'm not a great skier, but you've got these slaloms and super slaloms or super something,
Super G.
super G, and it's all about the cornering and getting. And Motu was like that for rally cars,
Right.
you know, and it was just incessant corner, 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 and tight and twisty and you know gravel, but loose gravel off to the sides and loose on the inside and staying in the line. And, you know, it was getting that perfect super G balance. And Colin, he was driving really well, and we were down, and And he said, how did we do? And I said, well, we were something, I don't know, second quickest or third quickest at that point. And he said, who was fastest? I said, Colin. All right. How much did he take from us? I said, 55 seconds. He said, you what? I said, yeah, 55 seconds. He took a second a kilometre from us on that stage. And that was like, bloody hell, that was something. Do you know what I mean? As it was, Colin went on to win his first World Championship rally on that event.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that then really showed the talents of Colin McRae truly. Do you know what I mean? That was a tough stage, and he drove it so much better than everybody else.
Yeah.
A different league. And anyway, that we finished about
Fifth.
I was going to say we weren't in the top three. Anyway.
No, but why didn't you do? Because I remember Dennis Giraudet, another legendary co-driver, did Rally Finland with him, and they also did win. You did the rally with Armin.
Yes, because they wouldn't release me from my contract for the 1,000 Lakes.
Ah, so that was part of his rallies in his contract.
Yeah, so 1,000 Lakes I was contracted and they wouldn't let me go. But, you know, there was a lot of pressure added by UR, and UR bought out my contract from Andrew Cowan and Mitsubishi.
After that?
Yes.
Ah.
But it was the most frustrating rally I'd ever had to do. Now, when you consider I've just won Argentina with UR, I've just been to New Zealand and the New Zealand rally, and then I'm sat with Armin maybe on the bottom end of the top 10, and UR's in the lead.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, shit, I could be in that car.
Yeah.
You know, it was frustrating. I did a professional job. I did my job and everything that was needed. But I was so disappointed that I didn't win 1,000 Lakes. And do you know what? We never won 1,000 Lakes together.
You didn't?
No. And that was that's one biggest regrets of one event that I didn't win was 1,000 Lakes. We always had something go wrong.
Yeah.
We rolled in the back of his yard.
Lankama.
I couldn't believe it. I thought this bloke was going to hit him out. You know, he came up to the driver's window. Anyway, he gets to the end of the stage with his wreckage. I said, God, who was that bloke? I said, I thought he was going to hit you. He said, you have not met him. That is my other brother, he said. His brother was even spectating where we rolled on the back of the farm. But we never had the opportunity to win 1,000 Lakes. And I think I came closer with Colin than I did to winning the event than I did with UR as it happened. But a very special rally. And to be honest, in 1994, when I had the opportunity to go and do the rally with him, I'll be honest, I was apprehensive. You know, I thought, shit, this bloke is fast like hell here. And I know from my previous year experience with Malcolm and with Armin, how difficult this place was. You know, how the lie of the land and judging the crest and the jumps and the lines on the corner and the lines over crest to get it perfect for the next corner. And, you know, I knew how difficult it was. And I thought, shit, that's going to be some experience. So I turned up to 1994 and before the recce, and we had this rapu party with in the Laiavori with Tommy, Seppo, Simo Lampinen.
Yeah.
So these guys were doing this rapu party. I don't know where you come from. Give me the meat of the rapu, fine. But flipping off the skull and sucking the juice from the brains and stuff, I don't get it at all. And, you know, I understand why you have to have a vodka after every one. Well, I only did a couple of vodkas. I had to have a beer. But anyway, it wasn't a pleasant experience. So, right, let's get off and boys and let's do this recce. So anyway, we seemed to fly through everything. And we did something like 2 or 3 days. And UR said, listen, that's it. I said, what do you mean that's it? He said, you finished on the recce now. I said, well, we've only done 3 days. He said, yes. He said, don't worry. He said, I know this rally well, he said. I said, okay. He said, you're off to Helsinki to play golf with Seppo. So Seppo was finished as well. But it was the normal thing. They all went together as a group, having caviar and monkey and talking rubbish, and then jumping in with each other to go and drive the next stage. So now I've done 3 days recce, don't really necessarily know the stages, and now I turn up into the first stage. And the first stage started by the airport.
Valkola.
And Valkola is it?
Yeah.
And we start on a medium, narrowish piece of road, flat out down a crest.
Yeah.
Right-hand corner, tight hairpin left onto a narrow road.
Yeah.
So we get onto this narrow road, and I'm doing my best here and racked with nerves, thinking, what am I going to face? And Jesus, some of these big jumps in my himper, and all of this is going to be mind-blowing. So we get onto this narrow road, and there's some trees that felled on the right, and right round the edge of this road and down this straight, and it was something down like medium right, and then 50k right and 90 left.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting now for the K right, 90 left. Anyway, he's not really slowing that much at all. Anyway, next minute, he just goes straight through the middle of these bushes. No lifting at all, virtually. He's flat out through these bushes. And we come out the other side, and it was like, Christ! Blah, 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 blah. And then there was a turn around a big pile of gravel on the inside of a junction.
Slot left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which people always used to roll at, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
You went round this, and we get to the end of the stage, and I said to him, shit, what was that all about? I said, you scared me to death. He said, I'm very sorry. I should have told you about that. I said, all right. I said, is there any more? He said, no, don't worry. That's the worst one, he said. And that was it. Then we went off and we rolled on the next stage, dragged the car in wreckage and front wheel drive to the next short stage. Then the alternator belt came off, and we put the alternator belt back on, got to the end of the stage, and this car's a wreck. It's a jalopy. So then the boys are trying to repair it. And then what was the stage before my himper?
Wait.
Coming from the north, dropping down towards
Hannula.
Hanula. So I remember we were in service, and the boys are doing their best, and anyway, they said, listen, the chassis damaged badly, you're not going to have good camber, we can't repair the rear diff, we haven't got time, put some glass windscreen, this, that. We sorted the front out, sorted the bonnet out. So there was a policeman there on a motorbike. So went to the policeman. He said, listen, we're probably even finished. I need your help, he said. He said, unless you help me, I'm going to be out of the rally. Can you lead me up to the next stage, to Hanala? He said, okay, let me get on the radio. So he spoke to somebody on the radio. Anyway, next minute, off we went, following this motorbike, front wheel drive. And anyway, we get there virtually with dropping, if not much, if anything, really, by the time he'd lent us at high speed. So we did Hanula, and we came out of Hanula, and we had another service. And there, they put a rear diff in the car, and then we got four-wheel drive back. And then we went into my himper.
Yeah.
Now, for people in Europe, and you as a Finnish rally driver, the Finnish people on here would know what my himper's like, but you describe it as a driver to people in Europe that don't know the rally.
It's like a roller coaster. You go up and down. You have massive speeds, massive jumps. The speed is just crazy. It's a stage that has everything. Ouninpohja is a special one, but Myhimpää for me is an even more. I would maybe rate his even more demanding than Ouninpohja. Ouninpohja is fast and big jumps, but Myhimpää is just because it just goes basically like a roller coaster.
And the thing is, you're going up over and around mountains, which could have, on one long corner, you could have three jumping crests, which need a different line on each and every one to land in the
Yeah.
right position. And, some places with the speed that you carry, he was turning two corners into one,
Yeah.
just carrying so much speed on the first, going wide, and then literally the line would just carry you through the last corner. And now we've got camber. The one wheel at the rear on my side was like massive camber, and it's nothing we could do with it. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
So he said, we get to the end of the stage, and he said, "How was that?" I said, "How did it feel?" He said, "It oversteers a little bit on left-handers, but it's okay." And I said, "It was fastest time."
Yeah.
And it was like, after that, I settled right into it, because now all of a sudden on that stage, I realized, when I was terrified of all these jumps and crests and everything, he knew it so perfectly well. The car was never out of position.
Yeah.
It was easy, easy, easy. And it just felt like a dream. It felt like a dream. And then we came from last overall, after God knows how many fastest stage times, to finishing ninth, I think.
Yeah.
We
Ninth.
finished.
Ninth.
But he had so many fastest stage times on the way with his bent car. And that was, probably one of the most exciting rallies I'd had with UR anyway, in the World Championship. But
Was
set
that-
my nerves.
Was that a rally? Because I was 16 at the time, I was there, I think, servicing Mika, my brother. But I think that was the rally when you had your crash in his own home stage. He totally went not nuts, but like flat out everywhere, basically.
Yes.
So his attitude was risk or reward.
But it never felt like a risk anywhere.
Yeah, he just knew the
It
rally
didn't
so
feel-
well.
He knew the rally so well. There was never moments. There was never, oh shit, oh, got away with that one. Oh Christ, here's the next corner. There was none of that. Everything was perfect.
Yeah.
But high speed, high speed.
Yeah, having had the chance to be once in a Ford, no, twice in a Ford, and once can't remember what car. His driving style is so flamboyant and so calm. Even though I could only think, even though he would go flat out with risk, he would still be calm.
Yes.
Because that's the way he is as a driver, calm.
Yes, that's right.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not the working driver.
No,
And
but I mean, I think Juha was one of these drivers that was totally naturally talented, and the next guy was Colin. Colin was the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made it look so easy. We'd finished stages, with UR and with Colin, and these drivers are soaking wet. The sweat is dripping off their nose. UR just goes, "How was the time?" "Not bad. Second quickest." "Oh, very good." Window 1 inch.
Yeah.
Cigarette. And he's driving down the road section, having a. "What are you doing there then?" "Oh, it's just doing my co-driving stuff." "Listen, relax," he said. "Relax." He said, "You're here to enjoy yourself." I said, "I'm just co-driving." "You are." "Listen, you don't need to do that." Blowing the smoke out the window. And this was it,
Yeah.
And I mean, it puts a whole different perspective to a lot of people's idea of what was going on in the car. But it actually was pretty enjoyable and quite relaxing. It was good.
It's funny if I'm gonna have Juha actually next Tuesday as my guest. So I'm sure there are gonna be some really good stories. But there are good stories. I know you know good stories that you can tell also with the years. Or are there good stories that you remember that you could tell about the years with Juha?
I think I think that things with Juha. I mean, obviously there was this Finland whole incident, but when we actually, can I know I'm going to have to run in a minute. Can I tell you one story for Juha before I have to run?
Of course.
Because quite honestly, I could talk here the whole night.
I know that's always the case.
You know what? but this is not a case of not letting the truth get in the way of a good story. It's all true. But when I won Thousand Lakes, Argentina with UR, his brother was our gravel group, Timo, who's now the test engineer, isn't he, for Gazoo Racing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, we flew from Villa Carlos Paz down to Buenos Aires, and in Buenos Aires we stayed overnight before we took this flight to New Zealand. So, right, boys, let's go out on the town. I spoke to the concierge. Right, where can we go? We want to have a nice steak. And Newell, of course, was buzzing. He was happy. He won the rally, and so we went to this restaurant. And we get to this restaurant, and there was all the British Airways people were in there. So obviously it must have been a good place. And anyway, UR said, "Oh, this baby beef," he said, "Nick, you have to have it," he said. "It's the best thing ever." He said, "It's the best steak you can buy." And I thought, oh, baby beef, that can't be bad. It's probably one of these beautiful prime little fillet steaks. Anyway, baby was the flipping, I think it was a baby cow, not a baby steak. This thing was like massive. But anyway, we had a bottle of Malbec, and then they had another bottle of Malbec, and then they had another bottle of Malbec. And then some black stuff appeared called Fenne Branca. Now, Fenne Branca, I don't know if any of you's drunk it. Anyway, it's a very special drink, and actually I do now quite like it. But it is one of the national drinks of Argentina. They mix it with Coca-Cola. Now, Fernando, they call it. So anyway, I said, "Boys, carry on. I'm not used to this. You have a drink." So then we get back to the hotel. And anyway, everything was shut in the hotel. It was late-ish. I said, "Right, boys," I said, "we've got to leave here at 9:30 in the morning." So I said, "I'll see you in reception at 9 o'clock. Yes, okay. So I go to bed. I leave them to it. So I'm checking out in the morning. Anyway, here comes UR. And it goes to reception. Yeah, room number, da, 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 da. Ah, yes, Mr. Kankinen. Okay. He said, "Okay, Mr. Kankinen, have you had anything from the minibar?" And he said, He said, "I've left you the light." The man said, "What do you mean?" He said, "All that's left in there is the light," he said. And when his brother came, they'd emptied the flippings. They'd emptied his fridge too. So these boys just went and emptied their mini bars and had a private session at God knows what time in the morning. And that's when I realized that how professional drinkers some Finns are. And I just always I knew I just couldn't partake in that. I just had to leave them to it. But it was quite enjoyable. The look on this concierge, this guy behind reception, he couldn't believe it.
Oh man,
he couldn't believe it.
No.
But I mean, there was a lot of good stories. But I mean, I think the one thing that typified him when he won the World Championship, before we came to the last round, we came to Rally GB, and he said to me, "I'm going to win this," he said, "for you." Because he didn't have to win it because his championship was done.
Yeah.
And we turned up, and we did a recce, and the conditions were really bad. It was the worst Rally GB we'd ever had, and it was icy, snow.
Yeah.
On recce, one stage they were thinking they'd have to cancel the stage because we couldn't recce it.
Yeah.
But UR said, "Let me try with our recce car," and we did get through it. It was a stage we had notes for as it happened. But anyway, we completed the recce and started the rally, and we had a big battle on the first day on the Mickey Mouse stages with Colin. We went into the forest early the next morning, 6:30, and Colin was quick, and Colin was taking some time out of us, and but Hugo was quite patient, and just bided his time, and eventually, Colin went off and damaged the radiator and damaged the engine badly and couldn't continue, and then left us 2.5 minutes in the lead. And I always remember a friend of mine from Wales saying he went to one stage and he walked up the road and he couldn't walk on the road surface. He said it was so icy and slippery. And he said they watched these course cars coming down and they were so gingerly driving, very careful. And then he said we could hear the whistles blowing of marshals whistling, the cars were coming, and you could hear bang, bang, bang going on in the trees. And he said, next minute, he said, you came around the corner. And he said, my God, he said, I couldn't believe it, just how fast you were going. He said, I literally fell down on the road opposite where I was trying to get up the bank. And he said, I just couldn't believe the speed you would carry. But Juha was so experienced in those icy conditions. He just bided his time. Colin crashed, 2.5 minute lead. Let's use that 2.5 minutes. And then we cruised around the last 2 days to win the rally. And so not only did we win my first World Championship rally, I won my first home championship rally in the same year. So that's the perfect scenario for any new up-and-coming co-driver.
Yeah, surely. I'm sure there are loads and loads of stories that you could tell. I know you need to go soon, but there's two questions I would want to ask. I know you have an ST 185.
Yes.
What's the history of that car? How did it end up in your garage?
It was a car that was originally built for Carlos Sainz to do Australia. And then after that, Didier Auriol drove it in Sweden in 93. And then after that, Toyota Sweden bought it and sold it to a guy in Denmark. And then from Denmark, it went to Ireland. And then it had 2 or 3 owners in Ireland until it came over to the UK, still owned by an Irish guy. And I bought it. And it needed a lot of work. It had been changed to right-hand drive. So fortunately, they left all the pickup points in there so we could change the interior around, and then it was a slow rebuild over the last 18 months. But it was only owing to my time in Safari, that first test I did with Mikael, of 4 months on the roughest roads in the world, and the thing never even missed a beat. And winning my first World Championship, my Rally GB, winning one, I just had to. That was my favorite rally car, and I just had to have one.
Because they didn't really sell them to any there were surely guys who were trying to buy them out, but I think Toyota didn't really want to sell them either to too many of them.
No, I think they only had to go to people that they knew,
Yeah.
more or less. But they were doing a Clubman version,
Yeah.
which they would sell, and a lot of these left the factory at that time. But but then Grifoni, Toyota Team Sweden, places like this, they all had them. But it was only purely my love of the car after Safari Rally. I just had to have one.
Yeah, that's understandable. Listen, I ask all this question to every guest I'm having. Your top 5 all-time rally drivers. Can you name them? Not they don't need to be who is first, who is second, who is third, who is fourth, but and the first 5 one that come into your mind without too much thinking.
Okay, first one is Walter Röhrl.
Yep.
Walter Röhrl only because he was a real tactician and a guy who applied a lot of logic. And anybody that in the fog can catch, pass, and leave Marco Allen in the fog on Arganil is some driver.
Yeah.
And he was that man. And Walter Röhrl was my first real favorite. After that, I mean, as you are, obviously, and I've got to say Colin as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another driver I really admire is Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Somebody who was an exceptionally hard worker, who even in the face of adversity would always manage to pull through and get something. And I think that, he deserves the championships that he's got and the accolades that he's had over the years. After that, I mean, the rallying has changed if we go back into the current era.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to say Loeb and Ogier and all the rest of it. But you're dealing with a car, like you are said, it's like sitting in your armchair.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said they're so easy. They go so fast. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not good drivers because they are superb. But I like the boys in the old times where they had to really work hard and make the best of the conditions and make the best of the compromises. You never have perfect. how many did I quote to just say there? 4. Right, hang on, I got one more. I think if I was going to choose one more, if nothing more than for many great results, was Michelle Mouton. And I think because, she was a woman that came into which was predominantly a man's world and took the men on and beat them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And we've never had that since.
No.
And I think we need more women in our sport.
True.
And I think we need a woman to be at the front taking on the men. It's not easy to attract women into the sport. There are women in the sport, but you know what it's like. If you have 100 people, maybe one has a chance of doing some good.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have 100 women in the sport. So, the chances of getting somebody to go to the higher echelons is quite difficult. But Michelle has to be there purely because what she achieved as a lady in a man's world. She was a remarkable driver.
That is true. That is true. That is a very good list. I had three of the same drivers. I didn't have Roll, I didn't have Michelle, but I had in my list there is these 3 guys, and then there is Henry Toivonen and Tommy, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to make your top 5 like in 2 minutes. If you would really think for half an hour, you could be able to make your all-time top with. But it needs a lot of thinking.
It does. But those are mine really. And I mean, I was lucky enough to probably sit with 2 of the most naturally talented drivers that the world will ever see, in Juha and Colin. And I think if nothing else, just that opportunity is enough to say, I've had a good time.
Yeah, I've had a really good time these last 2 hours. You know what? The way you started the show saying "Terve Juntti," the spectators now want to make it a command, so that if they say this certain word in my chat, your Terve Juntti is gonna come out in the broadcast. So thank you for that. What they are also asking is, would you have any notebook, or could you read, because your voice is in Richard Burns Rally as a co-driver, and I'm gonna have you actually as my co-driver from now on. When I drive, I'm gonna have you, and I can then send you messages. You fucking shit, you're late. You're calling your notes late. Could you just read, like, out of your memory, any stage just for the spectators to have a feel?
Well, can I take you on a walk about a minute?
Of course you can.
And I've got this is in my
you
cupboard.
can show your showroom as well. It looks nice.
Yeah, this is my showroom, but you can see there's a lot of stuff in here over the years of medals and starters, little badges and plates. But then underneath here, other than road books, some time cards from retirements and stuff. But here there is some pace notes from Colin McRae. Can you see the page fully or not?
Yeah, we can.
Shall I read the top
Please.
few lines?
Please.
2 left plus tightens into 6 right, 70, 6 right over crest, into left, and 4 right plus tightens to slow 4. Now, that actually is quite tricky because the 4 right plus is a very fast corner for Colin.
Yeah.
So that's, as soon as you come out of that slow 2 left, into 6 right, 70, 6 right over crest, into left, and 4 right plus tightens to slow 4. That all had to come out like that because it's so quick.
Yeah, that's why you've underlined it. Yeah.
And then underneath here, can you see this 3 left plus?
Yeah.
And left tightens to 3, and right tightens to 3 plus, don't cut, and opens long.
Yeah.
Now that's a lot of information. Now, Colin's pace notes actually were quite simple in comparison to most others, because a lot of it was based on what he could see as well.
Yeah.
But it actually flows quite nicely. And, by the time I'd left Juha and came to Colin, reading pace notes and the way I read pace notes changed because, when I started with Juha, I was always a little bit squeamish, a little bit too hyped up.
Yeah.
But over the years, I just became very calm and collective, and it all just became like a matter of fact, and it was just easy, and everybody is going well, and you're driving well, and you're under control, and two left plus tightens, and but Colin's notes just flowed off the tongue like a nice cold beer on a hot summer's day.
Oh, that taste is nice. And those notes look really simple if I compare to some other drivers I know, and one certain driver I work with. Those look like really simple notes.
Yes, yes, and I think there's a lesson to be learned in many ways. Is it more about what you're listening to, or as much as what you could see, and your ability can allow you to do? And I think that certain drivers over the years, like Petter's an example, that he was very successful, and then he changed his notes to become a very, very in-depth system, and he seemed to be going backwards, not forwards,
Yeah.
And I think there's a line to be drawn, but certainly nowadays, when these events are sprint events like they are,
Yeah.
You have to extract everything out of every corner, and it's down to the individual to make sure that happens in whichever way he can achieve it.
Is there a reason why you have that certain page of the notes visible?
No, not really. It was just that that was from the last World Championship rally I did with Colin in Turkey in 2005, or no, 2006, when we were in Sebastian's car. So, that basically is, just because I've got them here.
Listen, you said we could talk on for 12 hours, and now the viewers are saying we need to do a part two because you obviously want to talk for 10 more hours, and I'm totally up for it.
Okay, no, I'll do another 2 hours for you. And there's so many stories we haven't talked about, so
Yeah.
many things we haven't covered, and maybe what I'll do is I'll give you some structure of where to go and what questions to ask, and then just let's leave it to it and go from there. But I'll definitely do another for you, Christian.
Thank you. That would be great. That would be awesome. I hope I'll be able to see you anytime soon, and I hope the world will open, or you'll be in some rallies. I'm going to every rally, so I hope I'll see you soon.
Okay, no, absolutely. I don't know where I'll be, but we haven't got a Rally GB either at the moment, so
Yeah.
we won't be in GB for any time soon anyway. So
Yeah, but let's try to catch up, and let's do this part two whenever you are ready. I'm up for it, totally.
no problem at all. If it's next week or the week after, you let me know.
I will let you know. Thanks a lot, Nicky. It was great to have you on
Moi
my
moi.
show. Moi moi.
Moi moi.
Speak to
Bye
you later.
everybody. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.